I'm a little bit eager to get into actually doing a session together. And Susan and I had spoke about how with using HeartMath and M-Wave, bolstering that breathing as well as positive emotions, which I'll be doing another video about here soon. I asked her if she wouldn't mind layering in some of that to this so that we can add those components together. So I am ready to dig in if you are.
So I like to start by having you move.
Yes.
Right? So if we move and do little things that make our bodies feel good, what that does is remind us that there's not like this rule and this is sitting in a corner being quiet. This is something that our bodies actually like to do. And so if we start meditation with something that makes us feel good, we get a little bit of positive reinforcement that makes us want to do it again. Our bodies go, hey, that's the thing where we get to do something that makes us feel good. And that can make it easier to meditate in the future. So it's okay. It's okay to move. But I do think it's helpful if you're sitting in a chair to have both feet on the floor. And that does several things. One thing it does is to help us just to feel grounded and supported. It also helps us to be balanced. So, I have a tendency to cross my legs when I'm sitting. But when I meditate, I really try to find a point of balance so that my body is not working to stay upright. So it's helpful to have a simultaneously relaxed and alert posture so that we're not, slumped and apt to fall asleep, but that we are just upright enough to be intentional about our posture, right? So a lot of times people close their eyes when they meditate. For people who have had a traumatic experience, closing their eyes is not a safe thing to do. And so you don't have to close your eyes when you meditate. It's absolutely okay to have your eyes open. It can be helpful to have just a soft focus on a neutral spot in front of you. Sometimes we use what's called hooded eyes so that you're just kind of closing your eyelids a little bit. And it's almost like you're not really focusing on anything in particular. I'm going to close my eyes because that's comfortable for me, but you can choose to keep your eyes open or closed. Either one is absolutely fine. So I'd like to begin by just acknowledging that we are starting this meditation in the middle of our lives. And so we may have been doing something before we started watching, and very likely there's something we're supposed to do afterwards. And so thoughts of what we've already done and what's coming up may be present for us. And we don't have to make them go away because they're there. But what we can do is to just let them kind of fade into the background a little bit, almost like a radio or Spotify or whatever music app you like. At some point, it's there, but we're not really paying attention to it. And we're going to bring the spotlight to what we can experience with our senses in the present moment. So right now we're focusing on those first two aspects of mindfulness, intentional awareness on the present moment. And the easiest way to experience the present moment is through our senses. And so we can begin with what we hear, for example. Sometimes sound can feel like a real challenge when it comes to meditation. But we can actually have it be the practice, that it's okay for there to be sound. We want to hear what's happening around us. So we can notice what's happening outside our house or whatever room that we're in, right? If you can hear outside sounds, there might be things like birds or wind or rain, right? Sounds of nature. And there can also be man-made sounds, evidence of humanity. Cars or lawn mowers, construction. So just take a moment to see what your ears can pick up. And the non-judgmental part is there are no bad sounds here. Sounds that we might otherwise find irritating or distracting are not a problem because we are choosing to focus on sound right now. We can also pay attention to the sounds that might be in the room with us or in the house or in the building. There might be sounds from other human beings or animals that we share space with. Or there might be mechanical sounds of air conditioners or a fan, a washing machine, a ticking clock. And then we can bring that listening within us, inside ourselves, because our bodies make noise too. Sometimes that noise is intentional. So you might choose to move your body against the chair or tap your feet against the floor and notice these sounds that you are intentionally making. Or you can notice the sounds that happen just from being, the things that we don't really think about or have control over all the time. So there might be a gurgling of the stomach as we digest our food. When we swallow, that makes a sound inside our heads. If we're really still, we might be able to hear our heartbeat. And then there's always the breath. When we breathe, and we breathe all the time, we can notice what the breath feels like and sounds like. So as air enters the nostrils, moves through the throat and into the lungs, our bodies move in response to the breath, and the air touches parts of our body. And we can notice what that feels like, what that sounds like. We can pay attention to our breathing as if we are aliens from another planet who have no idea what breathing is, and be curious about what it looks like, right? If our eyes are open, we can actually see our body moving. What it feels like. And there's no right or wrong way to breathe. We breathe all the time without thinking about it. We don't have to think about breathing now either. We're going to use this other observing aspect of our minds to notice. And if it feels good to breathe more deeply, that is a great thing to do. A deep breath certainly can bring on a sense of calm. No matter how you choose to breathe, that's the right way to breathe. The aspect of mindfulness around breathing is not the practice of breathing or the calmness that might result from breathing more deeply. The mindfulness aspect is noticing what happens in the body when we breathe more deeply. When we notice how our bodies respond to a particular action, it helps us to choose actions more wisely in the future. And maybe when I stopped talking, your mind wandered. Your mind might have been wandering the whole time I've been talking. When that happens, and it will, you can notice that the mind has wandered and just bring it right back to being curious about the breath. And if the mind gets bored with the breath, there are things we can do to help it stay engaged. We can pay attention to a part of the body that notices the breath most prominently. Or we can follow a breath from the moment it enters the nostrils and moves through the body and then is exhaled. We can also bring a sense of gratitude for the breath. This ability to bring oxygen into the body with very little effort. We can hold in our minds how the oxygen feeds all the cells of our body. Right? The blood becomes oxygenated and is carried through the body. And then what is no longer needed is carried right out. This amazing process that happens every moment of our lives. We We can be grateful for the beating of the heart that pumps that blood to every cell in our body. And when we think about gratitude, we can notice where we feel that gratitude in our body. For some, maybe it makes your heart beat just a little tiny bit faster. It gives you just a little bit of a rush. Or maybe you sort of feel your chest opening up and you just have this sense of having a full heart. Like physically, your heart feels like it has expanded. Or maybe when you have feelings of gratitude, there's a sense of ease in your body, maybe just a little bit of relaxation that happens when we have that type of gratitude and openness to life. So you might notice as we've done this practice, which has actually gone on a fair amount of time, maybe you've stayed engaged the whole time, maybe you haven't. But it's like I've taken a spotlight and shown it on different aspects. Sound outside you and within you, the sensation of breathing, allowing the mind to play with gratitude, and then shining the spotlight on how our bodies react in response to gratitude. And then you can bring up the floodlights, light up the whole stage, take in your body as a whole. We sit and know that we are sitting. That ability to do something and be able to observe it as well, to have that perspective that allows you the mental space to decide, to be intentional. And so as this practice comes to an end, I'll encourage you once again to move as the body wants to, stretching or shifting, noticing again the support of the chair and the ground. If your eyes have been closed, you can open them and begin to take in the surroundings and the space you occupy.
So one of the things that we get to do together whenever we have our meditation sessions together is have a moment for reflection. And I would love if you could share, you have an acronym on how you ask people to reflect. I think it's a good practice for people to have, even if they are doing this on their own and not in a group setting. So can you share that with us?
Sure. So a lot of times when someone says, "How was that for you?" we judge it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. I liked it. It felt good, right? And so rather than just going straight to what we think about something, the acronym I was taught to use in that very class that I took is called SIFT.
Mm.
So that stands for sensation, images, feelings, and thoughts. And we do them in that order so that the thinking, judging part comes at the end. And I think it's especially helpful to start with sensation because that's exactly what we were focusing on in that practice. So I'll ask you, what did you notice that you could feel sensation? What were you sensing? What was coming up for you as you paid attention to what you could feel and hear?
Yeah. So, as far as the sensations piece, I mean, when you were asking me to really focus on the breath and where I was noticing the breath and feeling my ab area expand, um, and also, and I don't know that I've experienced this as much in the past, but you particularly highlighted like the feeling of the breath coming like through the nose, and that was more evident to me this time, and that was really intriguing. Um, Something that I do experience frequently is a warmness in my hands whenever I'm meditating. I'm assuming that has to do with blood flow. Um, and I think those are the major ones from a sensation standpoint. But like, yeah, I could definitely like be in tune with the fact that the air conditioner is on and the fact that, I know that at some point a helicopter is going to go by, and being like ready for that. Um, so it's nice to be thinking outside of yourself, but also being mindful about what's happening inside of yourself as well.
Mm-hmm. And you know, when you the more you meditate mindfully, the more skillful you become at sort of changing the focus on,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was using the word spotlight, but you could sort of think about how a camera focuses as well. That you might focus on a particular detail, but then you can kind of expand the focus and you get more nimble at moving across senses or getting into specificity versus taking in something as a whole. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool that there are things that come into your awareness because you're paying attention to them that you never would have noticed before.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not notice. I guess imagery of the breath going through the nasal passageway and like filling in the lungs. It's probably the only image that I had. And then feelings. I would say there was some feelings of anxiousness of like what you mentioned before is like, oh, I have another meeting that's going to be happening after this. So I want to make sure that we wrap up in time. But then being able to like label that and being like, that isn't needed for now. Like just letting that go. I think over time that has become a much easier practice. Um, and then there is definitely a feeling of like groundedness and calmness, and not a calm sleepy, but like a calm confident, like assured, comforted within myself. Um, so those are the feelings or emotions that I was experiencing.
Nice, nice. And some people with images, they actually see color, or
Mhm.
especially with a breath meditation, they begin to see like waves or, some sort of a rhythmic motion, a metaphor that begins to come up for them.
Mhm.
So it's interesting when you explore what does come up and you don't go straight to thought. When you go through that SIFT acronym, it helps you to go a little bit deeper with what you experienced as you were doing the meditation. And I hope that people who are watching this recording will take a moment to go into the comments and share what sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts came up for you